Hey guys, I'm back again with another video. This one's a technical one, and it's something that I hear sometimes a lot from strength trainers, people that are lifting, and it's why do my hips tuck when I squat? And you might know this as ButtWink, and I've done kind of a crude drawing. So the dot is the barbell position. As we can see, the barbell's in a good position because it's still over the foot. But as we notice, we've got rounded, and what's happening here is the hips are tucking under the body. And, you know, it's something I hear a lot is, I can get to depth, but once I get to a certain point, my hips tuck. So I just want to go through some of the common reasons why this might be happening and then talk through ways that you can fix them. So first and foremost is you want to look at your squat form and your squat stance. How are you standing when you squat? Where's your foot position? What's happening with your feet? Are they turned out? Are they pointing forwards? As you squat, are you cueing the movement patterns correctly? You know, are you knees forward then butt? Are you hinging over? So for the fix, best thing to do, film yourself squatting. Film yourself squatting from front on, from a 45-degree angle and side on. And that way you'll be able to assess, what am I doing my squat for? Ideally, you would either send that to someone like myself as an online coach, or if you train at a gym, see if there's an experienced, qualified personal trainer that can look at what you're doing and give you advice. Make sure you ask advice in the right place. Something I'm very aware of, and I know this can be the case pretty much wherever you go, but when you pass a personal training qualification, it's like a very basic qualification. There's a lot of people I know that are qualified that really don't have a clue what they're doing. So make sure if you do ask somebody for help that they actually know what they're talking about when they give you that advice. So again, check your form, film it, assess it, and have somebody else that knows what they're doing look at it to give you some tips and pointers. The thing that we have that's quite interesting with squats is we're all built differently. You know, I suffer with what I call Barbie syndrome, or I sometimes call it spider monkey syndrome. I have really long legs and a short torso, which is always going to affect my squat pattern compared to somebody that has a more even ratio and relationship between their torso to leg length. You look at a lot of the big squatters that have really high numbers, most of those guys aren't 6'2", unless they're like Eddie Hall or Thor Bjornsson, like the monsters. If you look at powerlifting, a lot of the guys aren't as tall, but they have a much better, like, they look like a dwarf from Lord of the Rings. They have a much better position. That's not a negative. Like, I'm jealous. I wish I had the body proportions because I'd have a much better squat than what I do have. But again, what that does mean is that you have to take into account that everybody's going to have a slightly different squat form. And what would work for me might not work for you. So don't just take advice just generally. Don't just go on YouTube and go like, how do I fix my squat form? Because you might be watching somebody with different mechanics to you. That's why I'm always more of a fan of go in person to somebody who knows what they're talking about so they can address it correctly. Someone like me, which wing. Second thing, if your form's good and your form is okay, we want to look at what we potentially have is what we call a tight superficial backline. Now, our body communicates and works in a very special relationship with itself. You know, you've got muscles at the back of your body, front of your body, to the side, and it's not as simple as the relationship between how they work together. There's kind of like this DNA corkscrew spiral that goes through your body as to what muscles work together. And for a lot of people with issues when they squat, it's issues with the superficial backline. So we want to look at certain muscles along that chain. So if we look back on here, the first bit of advice I've got is to roll the bottom of your feet. A lot of people are like, what? But obviously that's where the chain starts, the muscle at the bottom of your feet. And if you're wearing shoes, especially like women, if you're wearing heels and stuff, those muscles on the bottom of your feet can get tight and cramped. So one of the best things I found, and I've really seen a massive difference in doing this, is starting to roll my feet before I train. So you can use a broom handle, you can use a barbell, rope climb. Like if you've got, if you train at like a CrossFit gym or a functional gym, they've got the ropes hanging and you can use it on the floor. I like the pattern on the rope, that really works. Or you can just buy a specific, like a lacrosse ball or a massage ball to roll your feet. And just spend sort of 90 seconds on each foot before you start to really loosen off those muscles. And it will send a signal to relax off your hamstrings and your calves and your glutes and your lower back. Another piece of advice that I would give that I've not written on here is start wearing barefoot trainers. I personally have worn barefoot trainers now for the last 10 going on 11 months. And I've noticed that the strength of my feet has massively increased. I don't have as many of the problems that I used to have. I have arthritis, and it mainly is in my knees and my hips. And since going to barefoot trainers, I've had much less issues because my foot is sitting more natural and my muscles in the bottom of my feet are stronger. My feet are also splaying out where they're supposed to be. In trainers, we crush our feet in. So having wide toe box barefoot trainers have a massive benefit. And especially now, there's certain companies that actually make good looking ones. I know about 2 years ago when I first looked into it, I bought a pair and they just looked like weird clown shoes. Like they didn't look good. But these days, because they are more popular, you can actually get good quality ones. So think about switching to barefoot. Start rolling the bottom of your feet. We want to look at working upwards, our hamstrings. A lot of people have overly tight hamstrings. So we want to learn to loosen the hamstrings, but we also want to learn to strengthen them as well so that they can pull the hip structure where it needs to be, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. So things like Nordic curls. So if you don't have a Nordic curl bench at your gym, it's literally kneel down, a barbell over your ankles with weight on the barbell, and your job is to lower yourself down as slow as you can to the floor and then try and pull yourself back up. They are a very hard exercise. So I'm sure there's plenty of videos. I'll try and upload videos of how to do Nordic curls. But I'm pretty sure if you just search in the bar after this video, obviously, how to do Nordic curls, you'll find those. But other than that, laying hamstring curls are excellent movements. Doing RDLs. If you're going to be doing RDLs, try and do single leg. But what's better is doing split stance. So stand with one foot slightly back on the ball of the foot. Slightly bend your knees. Imagine you're wearing a corset so you can't bend in the middle. And don't think about bending over. Think about driving your butt back and push back to get a big stretch. You should feel it stretch your glute and your hamstring. And as you come up, clench your glutes at the top. Those are an excellent exercise. There's loads of different hamstring exercises you can, again, look and find. I'm just giving you ideas of how to do it rather than giving you specific lists of movements. I can do that, and I'll probably do it in a later video. Alongside the hamstrings, though, we've got to look at our glutes. A lot of people have a difficulty activating their glutes, and some of it is because of the other muscles are tight. When we have tight muscle structures and our joints can't work the way they're supposed to, we end up with compensation strategies. Basically the body goes, that muscle's supposed to do its job, but because I'm in a position that doesn't allow it, it means this muscle's going to have to do that job instead. So doing things like glute bridges, back extensions or hyper extensions where you're squeezing at the top, learning to engage those glutes and use those is going to be massively beneficial. The next thing, and the more common one, is we have what's called anterior pelvic tilt. So where our pelvis sits, we have this like the Kim Kardashian, that's an extreme example, where the hip tucks out. That causes ButtWink because as we go down, we're asking our hip to move in a certain range of motion. We're asking our femur, our leg, within that socket to go into a certain position. And if we're too far through, we can't do that. It'll pull itself through to allow that to happen, basically. So we've got to look at ways that we can fix anterior pelvic tilt. So alongside these, strengthening our abs is probably the number one thing. The reason we have anterior pelvic tilt, from here, my abs are constantly stretched, and because my hips are sticking out, and again, I'm exaggerating, my lower back becomes shorter and it's tighter, so it's holding a lot. And my abs naturally are more turned off. So learning to compress and engage your core is going to help you pull. Again, if you watch, if I put my hand in line with my hip and I go into anterior pelvic tilt, notice that my fingers are pointing down, assuming you can see my hand. From here, if I just brace my abs and I contract my core, I've already just pulled that into the correct position. And when we crunch, what I'm doing is, if I put my thumb on my lower ribs and then at the top of my hip, I'm just trying to bring those two together. So I'm crunching down. Hanging leg raises and hollow holds are probably two of the best exercises for helping you to improve that core contraction and core engagement. We also want to look at improving the adductor strength in our legs. The combination of these exercises will, in most cases, help people eliminate the ButtWink in their squat. So, quick overview. Check your form and stance. Start by rolling your feet. Try and start training and walking around in barefoot trainers where possible. Look at improving your superficial backline. So lengthen and strengthen your hamstrings. Learn to activate your glutes. And then to fix the anterior pelvic tilt, those combined with strengthening your abs will help you pull through and working strength on the adductors. Those combined will start to reduce your anterior pelvic tilt. How do we do this? Really simple. On squat days, when you come in, a few minutes on the bike to get the blood pumping, start by rolling your feet. Go through some of these preparation movements first, either as a circuit or just individually, before you move on to your squats. And if you start doing this, you should start to see a benefit. As always, if you've got any questions, drop them below and I'll do my best to answer them.